Welcome back to another episode of Lifetime Talks. I'm David Freeman.
And I'm Jamie Martin.
In today's topic, we're going to be talking about healing the modern brain, 9 tenets to build mental fitness. So studies have shown that over 50 million Americans live with mental health concern, and that number only includes those who are willing to admit it. As a result, many people are not receiving the help that is needed in this space. And as science and learnings continue to evolve, we now know that there are proactive steps we could take with our lifestyle to improve our mental and health to combat these challenges placed on our modern brain. So, Jamie, we got a special guest.
Yes, back with us for a second time is Dr. Drew Ramsey. He is a board-certified psychiatrist, author, and a leading voice in nutritional psychiatry and integrative mental health. He's a fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and the founder of the Brain Food Clinic and Spruce Mental Health. For 20 years, he has served as an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at Columbia University, where he taught and supervised psychotherapy and nutritional psychiatry. He has authored 5 books, including the one we talked about last time on the podcast, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. And his latest book, Healing the Modern Brain, 9 Tenets to Build Mental Fitness and Revitalize Your Mind, is what we're talking about today. Dr. Ramsey, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here again.
Oh, Jamie, David, everybody listening, it is awesome to be with you. A great way to start the day talking about mental health and mental fitness. So I'm thrilled to be back. Thrilled to be talking about how we can do more every day, because I think we can all agree we need a little help with our mental health these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Doctor, last time, I want to say it's been 4 years. We kind of alluded to that prior to coming on, to behind the scenes. And last time we were talking about building mental health through nutrition. This time we're excited to talk about mental fitness, how to build strength through that today. So, I mean, before we jump into that, I know we can get right into it, but is there anything new with you want to share with our listeners?
Well, I want to share with everybody I've been working on my mental fitness, and I'm out in Jackson, Wyoming now, where I've moved with my family. And boy, living out in Wyoming, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, and it's also a place that tests your mental fitness. And as everybody knows, a transition like that, you got to build new community, you've got to make connections. It also can test you. So that's probably been the newest thing with me. I've gone kind of from being a farm boy out in Indiana, learning about nutritional psychiatry and spending time on my family farm, to being out in the mountains, understanding more about mental health and mental fitness. I guess that's a personal update, David, if that's what you're asking. No, other than that, I turned 50, David. Is that what you're like alluding to there? Like,
Yeah.
David, I hit andropause. Okay, I hit 50.
We were
I
just
hit
talking about
andropause.
that
That's
today.
I'm gonna start misting up right now. Actually, you noticed, man. You noticed. It's beautiful because I don't have a lot of gray, so sometimes people they don't see it. But yeah, that's the other thing that happened.
I would be saying right now, you're glowing right now. So I would not say anything about anything's pausing on you. You just keep going over there.
That's what happens when you turn 50. If you do it right, you start to glow a little bit. You get a little content. It's a really beautiful state. And yeah. And then the other thing, I do have a little glow. It's not just 50. I was just out with the American Psychiatric Association. All of my colleagues, it's like shrink prom. And no, I'm serious. It's like it's the people who are the heart and soul of America's mental health system. And it's just, I'm beyond inspired. It's hard to describe what it's like to be with that many leaders, that many healers, and everybody who's just thinking and taking care of our mental health, all the new research. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing, baby, I'm a little jazzed up about.
Love that. You're on fire. I love it. I love it.
Well, to be together with those colleagues, I'm sure it's great to be together, but also to be talking about what is happening in the state of mental health in the U.S. and around the world. There's been an alarming rise in mental health issues among our population. And, many people, while they may not be meeting the criteria for like diagnostics with a mental health condition, their well-being is impacted. We know that. We see a lot of people feeling the effects in their daily life. So let's get started by talking about the state of where we're at as a population. And there's some shocking statistics that you've shared on this, and we want to talk through that and kind of just level set with where things are right now.
Yep, everybody healing the modern brain did come from a very serious place that we've got to do more, and we all know that. And I wanted to sound an alarm that mental health challenges are coming for you. It's not something that a few of us have, or, that family that's got some challenges. No, all of us have to be on the lookout. The most disabling illness in America is depression, right? Number 2 is probably anxiety or ADHD. And we know a lot more about these illnesses than ever before. And I would say we have to do more. And
Right.
so what I talk about in the book are both the statistics, right? Talk about teen depression went from about 8% when I became a baby psychiatrist way back when, about 20 years ago. And now it's crept up. About 10 years ago, it was 14%. Now 1 in 5.
Mm.
20% of our adolescents are struggling with depression. We also have some bummer statistics about some of our treatments, like SSRI antidepressants are about 50-50 effective when it comes to teen depression. And so, I'm a prescriber. I think medications are really helpful for actually a lot of people, but they're very stigmatized. A lot of people are unnecessarily frightened of them. And even if folks are interested in them, if they don't get everybody all the way better. And so we need to do more. And
Mm.
that's where this book really comes from. We could keep going down the list. Boy, we look at substance use disorders. We have a country that is changing.
Mhm.
Very exciting. As I was writing this book, I saw people drinking less, turn into kombucha. I did that myself. Really amazing for your brain health. We've seen, of course, the screens take over our
Mhm.
lives. We just hosted, I'm part of a Teton Youth and Family Services, this wonderful nonprofit here in town, and we just hosted a youth mental health summit. And they did this amazing exercise. They took all the teens into a room and they had a facilitator and they had all the adults in a room. They kind of had us like talk room to room with the facilitator. And it was very interesting what the teens were saying. You all are asking, we hear you all asking how we're doing. How's your mental health? Are you okay? But it doesn't really seem like you mean it.
Mm.
Doesn't
Mhm.
really seem like you're listening. It seems like you're kind of distracted too. You tell me to be careful on my phone, but it's where I always find you.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of need that we have right now to get more conversation going, to see things like schools getting rid of the screens and getting focused back on learning. We also learned in the summit, you know, these phones are also tools for a lot of us, and we're doing more. So it's
Mm.
not just getting rid of it. So those are the kind of things, some of the headwinds that we're facing. In my last book, and also in this book, I talk about the nutrition as a great example. And I started with nutrition, and I realized, boy, just like there are certain foods that are better for your mental health, and there are certain foods that, it's been 10 years now of data saying nutrition is one of the biggest drivers of mental health risk.
Right.
But there are these other things. Think about, I mean, how many people do you know when you say, how you doing? They say, whoo, last night I slept so well. Let me tell you, I had this juicy dream. I want to get into it. It's like 8, 9 hours, like, oh, so rested, so much energy. Or when you ask to schedule, they say, oh, I got a lot of time in my schedule for socializing. What works in yours? We're all kind of over busy. We're underslept. There's a real distractedness. And so I wanted this book to directly address that and to give people goals and aims, just like they do for their physical fitness. David and I both know that we're working on our core. So as we age, we can get those thirst traps, zaddy thirst traps on the Instagram, right? At least that's what I'm working for. But what about the other part, probably the most important parts of our health? What about the aspects of our mental health that we need to work on? We can't
Mm.
just, just like our core, just like our flexibility, we can't just kind of be lax. And so that's where mental fitness comes in. And these 9 tenets, I think we agree on. Nobody's going to argue around like sleep's important.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get a lot of argument around. I recommend, and I'm kind of, I think, known for this in the space. I like having a lot of fun with people and their food and recommending whole, real, delicious foods, recipes, enthusiasm, farmers markets, CSA boxes, meat share. I mean, there's a lot of excitement that I have around your nutrition because just learned over the last 2 decades there we are so blessed. There are so many amazing food resources. I know we have a lot of hunger in our country, but we also have a lot of resources. We have incredible farmers and small farmers and family farms, regenerative farms. I mean, it's really popping.
Yeah.
So we need to remind people, just like with nutrition, you can hear my hopefulness, my excitement. You want to hear my pesto formula and recipe, right? I mean,
Send it over.
ready. Yeah, you want to let's have dinner and feed your brain. Like, wow, it's like super fun and delicious. Uh, 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 just like with that, I hope these other tenets inspire people. And so that's I guess to turn to me from the grim statistics of yes, more people than ever, 50, 60 million Americans are struggling right now this year. They woke up and they checked in with themselves. They used some of their tools probably. Um, some of my patients right after this call, I'm going to be checking in with. I am
Mm.
working with a number of people right now who are in tough spots.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to remember that. before we get into the tenets, I also do just want to say I do have this new soundbite I've been breaking out, which I do also want us all to be really mindful of how we judge other people's mental health treatments.
Hmm.
I've noticed that a lot where people have strong opinions about everything from the stimulants, medications like Adderall and Vyvanse, or antidepressants, or certain types of psychotherapy. Real strong opinions. And if you're an expert in mental health, I guess that's okay. But I don't find there are a ton of experts who actually have that strong of opinions. They have very nuanced opinions. And so we just want to be really cautious that everybody in America and everybody around the world feels the freedom to make the choices they need to make about their mental health and get the treatment that they need. And otherwise, we live in a world of stigma where I'm not actually going to make the right choice based on the
Right.
science. So sorry for that little PSA. I just think that we all need to loosen up a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of
Absolutely.
our opinions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of loosening up, I think when you define mental fitness, speaking from like a male's perspective, it's so many times that it's suppressed in a lot of ways because as a male, you don't want to express certain emotions because it might come off perception wise as weakness. So speaking from a male's perspective myself, a lot of the things that might be felt are not expressed because I'm good, I'm okay, it are certain terms that we usually say or phrases that we say. So when you say mental fitness as a definition, I know this could be broad here, but can you kind of break that down and share with those who are listening, male and female, but I was speaking from a male's perspective, how to get the reps in this realm as far as mental fitness?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. Let's talk about the reps for men and for women, but I hope this appeals to men. Is I hope you know I've been working very hard with Men's Health Magazine with my buddy
Hmm.
Greg Scott Brown. We've interviewed hundreds of men over the last few years about male mental health, mental fitness, what they do, how they got their first session in,
Mm.
what their reps look like. And so I define mental fitness in this book is a few things: is knowledge. I want to up level your knowledge. You're not thinking about mental health according to the latest science. I'm sure of it. You're not thinking about sleep hygiene according to, like, I don't know, you're not trying to get your glymphatic system to get rid of all the waste up there. But as soon as you read this book and think about new modern sleep, that's how you're going to think about it. Motivates you a little differently to go to bed early. It's about identifying your patterns and building new habits. Is a big part of my book, big part of my work as a psychiatrist. As I sit with you, what we're trying to understand and observe are the active choices that you're making and sometimes, not making, and understanding those patterns and habits. When you get in a habit, I'm in the habit of not drinking alcohol. Whew, boy, that's nice. I was in the habit of drinking alcohol. I don't know, just that wasn't awful. I had a lot of fun. I see all those, my iPhoto album reminds me all the time. Show my wife, I was like, dang, this guy's happy. That big grin, holding the drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so I'm a little different now, but I'm in the habit of that, and I'm very grateful for it. It's been very good for my health and for my relationships. Um, as people get older, they get in the habit often of getting up earlier and using that morning time really effectively. And so getting in some new healthy, wonderful brain building habits. And then people need some new skills I found. I learned in nutritional psychiatry. Boy, I could talk about kale all day long. People needed some recipes. They needed to learn the chiffonade. You don't know the chiffonade? I just, chiffonade, that little thin,
Yep.
you roll it up and then you then slice it. You, there's some things to learn. There's some skills around, for example, how you organize and keep your bedroom primed for sleep. There are skills that you need around, for example, I'm still working on that skill of thank you notes and
Mm.
writing them. We got some written. Now I've got to mail them and mailing them. It's really important for me. Actually, it's one of my big goals this year for my mental fitness. So getting those new skills and all this culminates in a more enjoyable, more mentally sound life.
Yeah.
Meaning that if mental health challenges come your way, and I don't mean to be a downer here, but I just uh, I I treat everyone, all walks of life. It happens to everyone.
Mm.
The more you can have knowledge about it, the more you can have skills and tools, the more you can have a set of good habits, you weather that wave much more effectively. And it's I think less. I think mental health problems are less frightening almost. And so that's how I think about mental fitness. And you get in those reps. I'm kind of annoying. I'm like this whole 3 day a week. I was like, no, 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 no. Your brain and your mental health, most important assets. This is every day.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's even worse than that. It's every day, and I want you to like it. I
Mm.
want
Yeah.
you to fill your life with activities that your brain, and your immediate, group around you enjoy.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the things when they asked me, David Little, what's different, right? What's different is I'm in a community where it's every day.
Mhm.
Every day in this community, people are out, they're active. And if you're really in the know here, you're twice a day. You start your day out on a mountain bike, and then after work, you meet your friends and you hike up Snow King. I mean, it's hard, almost impossible to keep up.
Mm.
Right.
But then you start trying. And then suddenly you're in that daily habit of really caring for yourself, prioritizing that, thinking about yourself sometimes I tell my patients, it's like you got to think about yourself like a thoroughbred racehorse.
Mm.
They don't give the thoroughbred racehorse regular hay. They don't give the thoroughbred racehorse regular stall. They get a lot of extra care because they do something extraordinary. And I
Yeah.
think you too, everybody listening, everybody's got some extraordinary things in them. It's not something the whole world maybe is going to hear about. For most of us, certainly not. It might be something just a few people or only you know about. But I do believe all of us hold extraordinary things in us. And mental fitness, I hope, helps people tap into that and reach that a little bit more effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think that's really inspiring. Like, these are the one body, the one life that we have. Like, let's treat it as if that is that extraordinary thing that we have, and we deserve that kind of care and treatment, like we would want for anyone in our lives, but turn it around on ourselves, right? Look in that mirror and know we deserve that too. So I really love that perspective. Thank you. We've talked a little bit about this already, but I want to jump to just the signs that somebody might be struggling with their mental fitness. I mean, in some ways, they can be super subtle. But what are ways that we might identify this? And you already mentioned like lifestyle habits that could be causing this, but picking up our phones all the time and all those things. But what are some of the other things that can become a vicious cycle for us and just kind of keep taking us in a downward spiral with mental fitness?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that you're talking with the screen. I think if we unpack that into what I call, kind of digital stimulation, where you're not making the choices about what gives you that little dopamine pleasure. You're not actually in seeking
Yeah.
anymore. You're in receiving, and you're in this mode of algorithmic receiving, and the algorithm's very good. If you're a man, you're going to get a mix of, very active content. You're going to get some testosterone influencers, and gentlemen, I know that all the other things the algorithm feeds you, so we don't have to say it here we don't have to say it here out loud. But it's a little terrifying where you go to, check your phone, and suddenly you're getting, dealt some images that you would not be looking at the dinner table or
Mm.
hanging out in your house usually. So that's a bigger challenge than just the screen. I think we make it the screen, but there's a way that we're missing something authentic, and we're missing something that it aggregates,
Yeah.
right? That it builds over time. Each time I see a patient, something is building my skills, my knowledge base, what I've heard about, what I've witnessed. And so it's very rich. Each time we pick up the phone, something doesn't necessarily aggregate. We're not after something. We're not witnessing something intentional. And so I think spending time away from the algorithm, and kind of building your own algorithm, like how do
Yeah.
you build happiness? Just like I did for nutrition.
Yeah.
How seafood, greens, nuts, and beans. I'm like, David, which one's your favorite seafood? Jamie, what kind of fermented foods do you like? And now we're planning a shopping list, some experiments, and dinner. And it's very concrete. And so mental fitness, I want to take this kind of uh you, you know the was the algorithm just came. I said algorithm and Siri came on. That's
Oh,
terrifying.
it's how it goes.
No, it's like, you're questioning me. I'm the overlord here. Sorry, you don't like the algorithm, Ramsey. What was that? I was like,
Coming right for you.
connection unstable. That's terrifying. So in all seriousness, everybody, I believe these digital tools are here to stay. They're going to help us.
Mhm.
But as we go through the tenets and think about them, you'll hear there are very intentional ways I'm wanting to get you in with yourself, with your mind. That's what I've gotten to see with individuals if they've gotten a hold of their mental health. And what I found interesting being a psychiatrist, I've been really blessed. This book is about my patients and me, and our mental health journeys. And the book's dedicated to my patients because these are really the lessons that I've learned from them. You learn very quickly as a psychiatrist to listen, obviously, but you get a notion of really needing to be humble and to be curious.
Mm.
And in that you hear a lot of things sometimes that maybe we don't emphasize. Like we didn't emphasize nutrition when we learned to be psychiatrists, but I think every psychiatrist knows, boy, if you eat better, you feel better.
Yeah.
And there's a certain healthy diet that we want our patients to eat. There's an emphasis on sleep, but we don't really emphasize how do you get people into amazing sleep hygiene. Like what does
Mhm.
that look like? And so as we think through these tenets and think about really, the way that we activate them in our lives, part of what we're up against again is a lot of stimulation, a lot of artificial light, and a lot of fetishization, I call it,
Mm.
where there's this, I think about it's a mix from kind of, I would say the news cycle where we're kind of like hooked on a constant need. As I was at a conference, they were talking about, the 24-hour news cycle, like that's now a thing.
Yeah.
That's never been a thing before us when we think about, again, what we're up against, what our kids are up against. That there's this notion of you're kind of missing out
Mm.
if you aren't always plugged in, always checking in. And that's very bad for us, right? Because we begin to look, out here, out there, and we stop looking inside. And I'm not trying to make us all selfish creatures. I just think part of where humans are really struggling to connect, to manifest, to love one another, to transcend all of the primitive feelings that we can have. Part of that is that we're way too distracted, and we're not actually doing the work that we all need to do to build a healthy community, build a healthy society, and handle the struggles that are inherently human.
Right.
Mm. Well, I know everybody has heard it a few times now, and they're curious to know the nine, right? So we've been dangling that carrot. Let's go ahead and give them that nine-course meal. All right, as far as the core tenets for mental fitness, we'll ping pong this back and forth. You just get ready in that hot seat over there. So let's kick off with self-awareness. Break that down for us.
Okay, self-awareness. You cannot manage what you can't measure, right? You can't begin to make changes in yourself if you don't know what's going on. People start down some path. I see this all the time. They meet someone who has a solution, they hit, and they don't take a step back and actually assess and evaluate what's going on,
Yeah.
ranging from the symptoms you're having, if you're having a mental health thing, to your life stage. Where are you in your 20s? I love working with people in their 20s. It's a little annoying now because I'm in my 50s and I'm like, oh, man, it gets rich, baby. Just trust me. So it's like that's not very helpful advice. But that's a little how it feels. But problems are different when you're worried about your finances or your profession when you're 20 or when you're 62. And so being really aware, I find this a lot of times where people getting advice, and I don't know, like if you're a pregnant woman, you should not be getting your advice from your like friend who swaps between veganism and carnivorism about
Mm.
like pregnancy nutrition, right? You need to know, hey, you're in a special state. There's a special stage of your life. You need real experts. And so self-awareness, huge part of the book, huge part of everybody's journey, and something that it doesn't stop. I'm joking with David about andropause. I've got like teens now. My kind of what I'm thinking about, what I'm struggling with, what my challenges are, very different than 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Mm.
Yes.
Right. So that's self awareness, one of my favorites.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's just kind of like, again, you just mentioned distraction right before that, like being willing to turn backwards and really reflect on where you are
Mhm.
and the current circumstances that are going to change over time. So I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, the second tenet is, well, you've already alluded to this, is nutrition,
Yep.
and huge
Yep.
for you.
We're going to do nutrition. I want to hear that, David. We're going to go back. What do you guys do for your self awareness? If I said it's
Ooh.
every day, I
Yeah.
was curious. Like
And
you two are very mentally fit individuals. What's on your self awareness plate?
yeah, I kick off my day. I usually have early morning days where there's 4 or 5 getting up. And before getting out of the bed, it's just that moment of gratitude of like, wow, I just woke up for one. So being grateful for that moment and then being asked to pretty much use me in the way so I can be the light to the world. So just grounding me as far as just being a servant leader and tapping into whatever that superpower will be for the day. So I just reflect as far as use me in the way that I need to be used to help impact and elevate lives around me.
Mhm.
So right, faith-based intention is what I hear in that.
Mhm.
And for people who have spirituality or people that's been part of your past and you can tap into it, especially I love that first thing. And it's also, you can hear by that people hear self-awareness like, oh, it's going to make me selfish.
Yeah.
Did David just sound selfish? I want to
Nope.
be of service. I want to be, please use me, make me of service, the best. I mean, that's a beautiful intention. So,
Yeah.
or Jamie, can you follow that with that? That's tough to follow.
Oh, that is tough to follow. It's really tough to follow. I was just, as he was saying that, and I just was listening to you, mine is really kind of at the opposite part of the day. I'm kind of more of I'm a night owl for myself. And it's kind of taking those 20 to 30 minutes when I'm by myself at night to just kind of reflect on my day. It's a little bit of that gratitude practice in terms of how did today go? Acknowledging just what was hard, what was good, and just being real about like the circumstances that I'm currently facing, right? Like just being, okay, this is where we are. Now what? And being willing to sit with that and then know like today's a great day for what it was. It gave me a gift and now tomorrow's another day, right? And so having that awareness and kind of that reflection is something I'm working on. And also a little bit of meditation. We have this event happening at Lifetime right now where we're doing some meditation. I'm trying to do it even just for 5 minutes to just be quiet and like let thoughts come and go, right? And not judge myself for them, right? That's where I'm at right
Yep.
now.
Yeah, it allows you to check in. And I think also it's something I've learned treating a lot of wives over the years with like problems husbands have and the husband fix it problem.
Mhm.
There's one where husbands like hear about something and like before you even finish your sentence, they got a solution. They're ready to fix this problem. And, I think meditation and sitting with our thoughts, watching them, feeling them, not trying to do anything about them right away, again, allows us to have this self awareness. I love
Yeah.
this way that everybody listening, you hear these two, very classic kind of bookends to the day.
Mm.
And I encourage everybody to try and engage in a little of both. And I love that way, Jamie. You're kind of framing things, and also a big part of self awareness is sitting with the reality. Our
Yep.
reality isn't always unicorns and rainbows.
Right.
It's not human existence. Sometimes,
Hmm.
those are amazing, but there's a lot of other facets of our lives, and so that I love those. Thanks for sharing your self awareness practices. I think the journaling is one that I also hear a lot of.
Yep.
People like everybody groans and rolls their eyes. And then they get to it, and it's really amazing what you write to yourself. Not necessarily like
Yeah.
dear diary,
Mm.
just like dear David. You know,
Yep.
Yeah.
like
Yep. It's a good, just a practice to just also know like where you are in any given day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All
all right,
right. So self-awareness. I can
nutrition.
see why that's a favorite. Nutrition. Yes. Underneath.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. Well, it's a favorite because it's so metaphysical. It's so like, who are you? Where am I? It's also an act of, kind of it's like the first step in self love. Like,
Yeah.
Mm.
just like so many people are in service of others, especially, women listening, right? So much service. And not that men aren't in service, but there's a way that often people reflect that they are not caring for themselves. They're almost
Mm.
blocked with caring for themselves with the same vigor, the same intensity, the same nuance,
Yeah.
the
Mm.
same like listening attentiveness. So all right, well, let's get into nutrition, everybody, because I wrote a whole book on this. Nutritional psychiatry's exploded.
Yep.
The American Psychiatric Association, you all won't believe this. I served up raw oysters on the health half show once, which violated a lot of health codes in Toronto. I'm still actually working with some of the fallout from that. But this year they were really organized, and we had cooking classes, had yoga every morning, meditation. It was a lifestyle focused theme. They gave an award for lifestyle medicine from the psychiatrist to Dean Ornish, one of our real leaders, lifestyle medicine, focusing on things like nutrition, movement, sleep hygiene. So it was really exciting to see that nutritional psychiatry has exploded. 10, 15 years ago, when I talk about this at our annual meeting, I get teased a little bit. They call me Dr. Kale. It's like, ha, ha, ha. And now it's this, dozens and dozens of talks about how nutrition impacts mental health. So there's been all this data about a Mediterranean diet for
Mm.
people with bipolar disorder and severe mental illness. There's this really interesting study that just came out of Stanford last year about a ketogenic diet.
Mhm.
There are now 7, 8, 9 randomized trials for depression. Or if anybody listening is struggling with depression and you're not eating a Mediterranean diet, or not eating this kind of brain food diet, the data says that if you adopt a Mediterranean style diet, 30 to 36% of you will go into full remission from your depression.
Mm.
If that was a medicine, it would be one of the most powerful medicines on the planet, what we call treatment resistant depression,
Mm.
which we're trying to change that name actually, because it makes it sound like patients are resisting, and that's not true at all. I've never seen anybody resist an effective treatment for depression.
Right.
Instead, it's people that we haven't been able to help yet. And so nutrition is a big part of that. Like I said, seafood, greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. And then I haven't figured out my rhyme, but it's like rainbows and fermented foods. I'm not sure how to end it, but it's something like that. But those are your food categories. And what
Yes.
that allows us to do is not be in the kale wars, right? We're not fighting with the vegans or the carnivores like zombie apocalypse, right? But actually be eaters in the grocery store and thinking, okay, what have my seafood meals been? Because that's where my omega-3 fats come from.
Mhm.
Like, okay, fermented foods, all this new science about the microbiome. The way you access that science as an eater is by eating more plants, more diverse sets of plants, and more fermented foods.
Yep.
I've talked to all the microbiome experts, and that's the consistent advice. They're not like, ho, 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 I've got the special probiotic. None of them. They're
Mm.
all like, oh, do you know about kefir?
Hmm.
So it's a really, again, exciting time for nutrition and your brain health. Some people, I think, feel it's a lot of hype. And I think you have to be very mindful and find the right experts. But nutritional psychiatry, the science is real. Last stat I would just throw at you: your kids heading into college. What's the top piece of advice you can give them to reduce their risk of depression? So there's a study in Spain, and Alma Villegas Sanchez is a researcher at University of Las Palmas, and she and her team followed 10,000 university students for 4.5 years, so all of college. And what they noted is the people who are in the top half of the class, like ate most like grandma ate that Mediterranean style
Mm.
diet, right? Some anchovies, more tapas, like more real whole foods. Their risk of depression was 35 to 50% lower.
Mm.
I mean, it's just like, wow, like,
Mm.
that's incredible data. So, other studies have looked at all of these together and saying populations that eat more traditional, healthier diets have about an 18 to 20% decreased risk of depression. So,
Okay.
again, that's what nutrition is. And it kind of shows that mental fitness of, hey, if you're struggling with mental health, this is something that can help you get better. Almost everybody agrees. And if you don't have a mental health problem, but you're like my family, you got some stuff in the past generations, you're on alert, you're on lookout, you want to do something to help your mental health, it's great preventatively. It's great
Mm.
to really, make sure your brain is fully nourished.
Mm.
So that's nutrition.
Makes total
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I mean, and then taking the nutrition, obviously great for the brain. And now we're also talking about how it can fuel through movement, which is our next tenet. So, how nutrition can fuel movement, and movement being another tenet. Why is that one so important?
Well, everybody, knows moving your body is one of the best things. It feels amazing. Nobody finishes exercise and they're like, that was awful. Even when it hurts, people are like beaming. Like, how was that? I was like, oh, it's so hard to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so it's one of even with that feeling, it's tough for us to get out. Exercise, I was just with Doug Nordsky, who's probably psychiatry's leader nationally, doing the research about how exercise impacts mental health. And he has this amazing review paper with he and his colleagues, and it's this what they call it's a multimodal intervention. You just the data starts inflammation, how it affects inflammation, how it affects things like muscle growth, how when you move your muscles, you excrete these things called myokines.
Hmm.
Myokines trigger brain growth.
Mm.
And so, there's just all this amazing data, how it affects your sleep. Everybody knows, if you go out, you work hard, you exercise hard, you have a big physical day of labor, let's say, you generally sleep really wonderfully.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so there's all these ways that movement benefits us. That said, 80% of new jobs are sedentary.
Mhm.
That said, one of the side effects of White Lotus is like 8 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours on your butt, like very stimulated and excited, not moving.
Right.
But that's a lot of sitting on your butt,
Yep.
binge watching, right? That means sitting still for hours and hours and hours. So how we get moving, how we get active. I think the good news is everybody's heard about this. I call it movement in the book, everybody. I don't call it exercise because I want you to go dancing. I just think if you're going to pick something, or if you're not exercising, if you're one of those people you keep like buying running shoes and going out, stop. Just stop. I don't want you to do any of that. I want you to go dancing. Seriously, if you look at the meta analysis, all the studies put together of movement, the one that seems most effective for depression is dancing. Boy, it
Mhm.
makes sense. You got music, you got a partner, you're swinging and grinding and twerking. I don't know what people are, but they're doing fun stuff, and we all know that, right? You
Yeah.
get to be my age, and it's like you mostly dance at weddings, and
Mm.
it's a shame You look at, what I would say cultures that have a little bit of a healthier lifestyle. You look at what else is in that Mediterranean lifestyle besides the healthy food. They do a lot more dancing. They do a lot
Yeah.
more singing. They do more going outside. So movement is what we're after.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So after movement, we get into sleep.
Sleep. I was going to say,
We
which you've talked a bit about already.
talked a little bit about just the glymphatic system is the thing I'm going to dangle out there. 2014, we didn't even know about it.
Right.
But what happens when you eat a lot of food? What happens when you burn fuel in your car? Right? You make waste.
Yeah.
And so your brain is your most metabolically active organ, meaning it burns more fuel than any other organ. Neurons are burning more fuel, so they're creating more waste. But I never really thought about that. Did you? Like your brain has I don't know, it's like brain sludge, I call it. Where it's
Yeah.
like,
Only because we've reported on it a lot. That's how I know about it,
okay,
right? Like, yeah.
okay, right. So the glymphatic system didn't get discovered until 2014, and they estimate 7 grams of brain sludge comes out of our brain.
Mm.
And so, again, this is why sleep is so important, and so many people are struggling. The numbers are horrible when you look at how many adults in America are struggling with insomnia in some way. And as a psychiatrist, I found you ask people, "How is it?" And people are like, it's not the best, man. I try for 6 to 8 hours, and I just don't think that's good enough.
Mhm.
Right? It's not a good enough assessment. Like, oh, what's that mean? Try.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell me about it. What's your bedroom like? What time do you eat dinner? What do you eat for dinner? When was your last caffeine? Tell me about, the light quality in your bedroom. How dark does it get? Do you monitor your sleep? I now have I'm going on 5 years of sleep monitoring data. So I know exactly where my challenges are. I know when I have a good night of sleep.
Yeah.
A lot of people are monitoring their sleep now. So it's a very exciting time for sleep. So we talk about sleep in the book again, something I want you thinking about every night, not trying to catch up, really honoring just like you do movement and nutrition.
Awesome.
Nice. Big one for me. Connection
Yep.
for us all with the whole
All of
life
us. Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, I want to hear about that a big one. What are you feeling?
Well, we were talking about superpowers as far as like if one thing that's been a constant in the health and fitness industry as coaches, and I was like, my constant has always been connection, like human connection, and you kind of heard it in the self awareness as far as just use me in a way, and then to make or create the biggest impact to those that I come in contact with. So connection has always been huge for me just because I know that whatever a person may be going through, if I have that opportunity as far as within that hour to create positive change for them to be contagious, to take that to whoever else that they come in contact with beyond the four walls. So that's why connection is huge for me.
I love that, David. I think about that a lot. Sometimes sitting here, you realize you're helping someone who's leading a family,
Mhm.
someone who's leading a company, or someone who's going to work. They're not leading; they're just there. And the more positive energy they can take, the more health they can take into that situation, the better it is for everybody. And that always can be a challenge.
Mhm.
So I love that. Connection is. In some ways, I like what you're illustrating. That connection is in some ways one of the scoreboards, and that we can kind of see the results, see results of the efforts. We can see where we've done a good job reaching out and being both influenced by. You're quite inspired by these folks you're helping,
Mhm.
and then also of help too. So connection is one of those things I look at as a psychiatrist, and in the book there are a lot of journaling prompts in the book, not a lot, but a few chapters of journaling prompts and some exercises because I really wanted to create something actionable. There's so many self-help books there, it's got mantras and ideas and I wanted to give you things to do. We have mental health awareness every month and every year rather in May. And I love mental health awareness month, but I always remind people that awareness without action doesn't get us there.
Mhm.
We need actions. And so connection, how do you take connection on that? Well, again, the first step again is that awareness assessment. And so we talk about your web of connection, thinking through a kind of inner circle. There's a wonderful interview. Men's Health brought in some real luminaries. We talked to Jeremy Butler, the NBA star, and and we're all waxing on. He was like a male mental health thing about like vulnerability and how to be vulnerable. And he was like, it's Jimmy Butler. Sorry, he was like,
Mhm.
don't uh, don't be vulnerable to everybody. You need to be very selective. And it inspired this chapter where encouraging people to really think about who is around you and what roles they play, and to acknowledge, not everyone is for everything. You have mentors and people in your life who help you with something very specific. There might be other things about them that you might not even respect or look up to, but there are certain things that they're there for you. It's a reason that they're in your path.
Mm.
And so, understanding your connections, thinking about institutions is a big one I take, especially right now, is that's really I'm a good example of someone who's just institutions have taken very good care of me over the years. I've been blessed with scholarships, Indiana University Medical School, and the Hoosiers of Indiana and their tax dollars helped pay for my end of my high school at this amazing academy that the Hoosiers created, the Indiana Academy. I've gotten help at Earlham College. I just, as I'm getting older, it's one of those things that's more and more clear to me, the institutions that help shape me and form me. Everybody listening has that,
Yeah.
Mm.
whether it's educators, whether it's your pastor at your church growing up, whether it's that hometown that you moved away from but you haven't been back to, but some really powerful things, some powerful people were
Mhm.
back there. So making sure to keep making those connections and also playing it forward as you get to be a little older, making sure to mentor people, have
Mm.
people that, you can help and take pleasure in their accomplishments. So again, these are all aspects of our connections that if we're a little more intentional about, you realize, like I just realizing, oh, it's like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I kind of hadn't refreshed, I don't know, refreshed or added on some new mentors. And it took I went around, I kinda asked, I looked and started making some new relationships. Boy, wow. Really people who've helped propel my career to the next level.
Mm.
Same thing I've noticed recently with friends, like, "Hey,
Mhm.
uh, I noticed my wife, wives are like, wow, they always have, like, book club. Have you noticed this?" It's like, "No, my wife just had book club last night." It's like all these friends and all they're, like, eating and talking about a book they all read. I'm like, "When do guys do like a book club or get together like that?" And I was kind of, I've heard myself actually reflect on that 3 or 4 times, like, "Ha, ha, ha." And then I decided today that I'm gonna call 4 or 5 guys as today or text them or something and be like, "Hey, our wives are getting together and I think we should."
Do the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and start, I guess, putting out dates is a thing that I'm kind of bad. I don't know what I
Yep.
know everybody will say yes. I don't know what I'm nervous about, Dave. It's just like I'm kind of ashamed. I'm not really that indoctrinated into that behavior somehow.
Mm.
And again, connection challenge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's on me. I'll send that text today or I won't. I'll work to get that group together or I won't. And so, again, just for everybody listening, I hope this is resonating with you. Of if you're feeling isolated or alone, one, it's not true.
Mhm.
That's just
Mhm.
not true. I've felt very much that way in the depths of some bad moments, and boy, it's just not true
Yeah.
in any way for me. And so it's amazing. You asked about earlier about like the mental health crisis. What I find amazing is how our minds can deceive us.
Mm.
Mm.
Something I work a lot with patients, that a commitment to a treatment plan means not doing what you feel, doing what you know.
Mm.
And sometimes there are two different things, especially if you have really bad depression or really bad anxiety. What you feel and if you follow that, it's really, you're going to be avoidant. You're going to have a panic attack. You're, going to be isolated.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, uh, again, connection, a huge thing for our mental health. Nothing really protects your mental health like your personal relationships. It's
Mm.
the first person you're going to go to when you're struggling, the first
Yeah.
person you're going to tell. So you really want to make sure you're creating relationships that have the quality that, again, it's not just for you. This protects your friends, your loved ones. Because when you're that person that people come to, I'm really lucky I get to be that person a lot when people have mental health
Mm.
problems. To me, that makes that gives me the signal that I'm doing it right.
Mhm.
People are
Mhm.
trusting me with the deepest stuff, and to me that signals I can do the same thing.
Yep.
And
It's
so
it's safe
connection,
to do that.
Yeah.
huge one.
Grounding. I'm really curious about this one. Tell us what this means. It's tenet number 6.
Yeah, tenet number 6 is a trick, Jamie. Tenet number 6, engagement. So tenet number 6 is
Ooh, did
engagement.
I
Number
miss them?
7
We went.
7 is a grounding.
Ooh, we gotta
Engagement
swap them.
It's however we can go. There are little sequence this way that you
Okay.
can. People ask it, is it an intentional sequence? And you
Mhm.
can do grounding and engagement either way.
Okay.
Let's just quickly start. Engagement is just, it's a very simple tenet is what it sounds like. It's
Yeah.
about building something called your cognitive reserve. It's about
Mm.
reclaiming your mind from the algorithm And it's, again, you can map out your connection web, but if you don't engage with that information, right, you can go and get a degree in whatever, but if you don't engage with that information, we can have connections and in relationships, but if we sit down at that date or at that book club and I'm not engaged, I'm on my phone, I'm distracted, I'm upset, oh, whoa, 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 about whatever, my renovation project, I need to talk about it one more time. I hate it when I leave things like that. I hate it when I just blabbermouthed about whatever and I wasn't engaged. I
Mm.
wasn't really, that sense of being present. So my engagement again is a request that people really use your mind as a laser-like tool, something that
Mm.
can focus and can be engaged. And I know so many people are struggling with that. We have this, everybody's thinking about ADHD, and I just spent half a day in an adult ADHD course. I mean, about 4.1% of the adult population has ADHD. Uh, uh, I also think as we up the distraction, we up noise, we up light pollution, we increase the number of connections we have and the apps for checking and all this stuff. Everybody can feel some of the symptoms of ADHD, misplacing things, losing things,
Yes.
cognitive fog, not completing tasks. So again, engagement is my request to fight against that.
Mhm.
Then Jimmy, then we get into grounding, and grounding is really about some of my personal journey and some of what the data says. And it's about being in nature.
Mm.
You can see this office of mine. There's plants in every room that I'm in. I always have plants. If you see my Instagram, I hope you'll check out my Instagram. But my most recent reel is a reel of me and all of my psychiatry colleagues from around the world. And it probably, to me, I posted it, and I think it's maybe the most meaningful post around connection I've ever put up, where just, I don't know, I've been feeling in a kind of isolated spot. And then I got just smacked in the face with, boy, just how wonderful a profession I have, how many wonderful colleagues I have. So, but to get back to grounding, you'll see a lot of nature
Yeah.
because I like getting out. I grew up on a farm, and then I moved. I spent most of my career in New York City, and
Mm.
boy, Central Park and those woods in Central Park and the Inwood Hills Forest, which is this huge urban forest in the very northern tip of Manhattan. It just became these lifelines for me, these
Mm.
places to go, and I just feel my whole nervous system settle down.
Mm.
And at first it's just like, it's because I'm a redneck, I'm from the country. I'm just like, I was like, of course. But then I realized, no, there's a lot of science behind this.
Yeah.
It's not just that I grew up out on the farm. I mean, that certainly has something to do with it. Just that, people can experience this really easily. Take off your shoes, walk in the grass,
Mhm.
or take some deep breaths, really feel that, I love going to places where you get overwhelmed with the nature, like a greenhouse. Or when I
Mm.
was in medical school at Indiana University, we did our first 2 years in Bloomington, Indiana, and the medical school back then was right next to this big arboretum. And you could, like, sometimes you'd walk into the lobby into med school and, like, you'd like smell it. It was like ozone and kind of like warm, humid air. And I remember in the middle, like, one was like horrible test, right? We had like a 15-minute break. I just followed that smell.
Mm.
I was like falling asleep. I was like not doing so well. And I walked through the arboretum. I just came alive. It was like extra oxygen. I don't know what it just really lit me up. And part of it was just being there, seeing all the different plants, being very inspired by all the nature, and then, getting back to my biochem test. And so again, nature's all around us. You don't have to move out to the middle of Wyoming. That's where my journey's led me, just because I've had a lot of nature, and there's something for me right now. You get out into the mountains here. Jackson, Wyoming says right on the edge of the Grovant Wilderness, Yellowstone, Bridger Teton National Forest. And so if you start walking out of town, it can get pretty dangerous. I mean, it's just there's not anything for hundreds of miles in every direction,
Mm.
and uh, and so there's a power of the nature here that I've never experienced before. This in this raw of a form. You go out with your kids for a walk in nature, and suddenly you're standing next to one of the scarier animals out here, the moose,
Oh.
which get very terrified and stomp people, or you bump into a grizzly, or
Mm.
you bump into so there's something about the big nature that I found really compelling. But I guess what I want everyone to hear, and I think we all appreciate, whether it's when you lay down on the beach or whether you dive into the water, that cool lake this summer, or whether when that snow, for me, the snow comes down here, I just grin so big. There's so many different types of snow here in the mountains. It's like being a student of something. I don't know what I'm studying, but boy, it's just the most beautiful thing. It's so really again, spending time with that awareness of what lights you up in nature.
Mm.
Somebody recently asked me about nature and pets. And, pets for me are throughout this. That's the reason I invoke my Instagram. So I got a lot of pets on there. Gussie, my Shih Tzu, I bumped into one of my residents, and she told this story about when I used to smuggle my dog into her supervision. When we were sitting there, my little Shih Tzu was like sitting on her lap. We're talking about her patient. We were like, boom, 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 boom. And security's there's like, we're looking for a dog. And she's like, sitting there holding this little dog. She's like a doctor training. Her eyes just got this big. She's terrified. So, yeah, that's us. We got the dog in here. Sorry.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
anyway, so everybody, I hope it helps you enjoy and think about nature and the natural things in your life. If it's your backyard, if you're in the city, if it's a little herb garden in your windowsill. I mean, just whatever you can do to engage with plants, engage with nature, get outside. Highly advise it, and great for your mental health. Actually, good data. There's 7 trials of uh, forest bathing, and 2 of them are
Yes.
virtual. So even like if you're feeling kind of off, if you're on a plane and you watch a nature documentary versus a violent film, the data suggests that it'll help your mental health a little bit. And so being in nature, but also virtual experiences of nature, all of those have been shown to help with clinical depression. And so,
Love that.
and then grounding roots right into this 8th tenet of unburdening. And unburdening is something I've witnessed as a psychiatrist. A lot of people come to me and they take a while. People take about 6 months. I find 4 to 6 months to really actually settle in and get to know me and let me get to know them. And there's a lot that happens to people that they never talk about. Everybody listening, I think, has had some type of trauma. And I don't mean to belittle trauma. I know a lot of people kind of rate trauma like big T and little t. And I sit with a lot of people who have very complex trauma, parents who were very successful and didn't really see them or interact with them in a certain way, but certainly love them, or people who have really creepy relatives that nobody knows did some really awful things, or people who just had an awful boss when they're in their 20s, combined with the bad depression. And those 2 things totally derailed their life, but it's really embarrassing because, the boss wasn't that awful. Right. So unburdening is really asking us all to transcend. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do, but to be intentional about transcending our trauma and our pasts.
Mm.
I've heard this expressed a lot of wonderful ways by people deeper in the trauma world than me, but one I like a lot is turning our ghosts into ancestors.
Mm.
And not to be haunted by our past in the same way. I find that's something that so many of my patients and I've also struggled with. Why can I not let go of this? Why am I still haunted by this thing so long ago? I've done everything. I've talked about it. I've tried all the treatments. I've done the weekend retreat. Like, why am I still plagued by these things? And so I don't think unburdening is easy, and I don't mean in a simple book chapter about mental fitness to in any way belittle someone's trauma, but I do get to sit with people as they transcend their trauma my whole career. And it's one of the most
Mm.
wonderful things to witness because bad things that happen in our past, we can't go back to our past and change that. We can only change, we can only really have control over right now, today, this moment. And when you have a lot of trauma, and I've both gotten to sit with a lot of trauma, but also as personally experienced a lot of it, I entered this world through trauma. Right before I was born, this big storm took hold in northern Indiana, and my mom heard a train coming, and she went down to the basement with this litter of puppies, and she heard it got louder and louder, and the whole house got torn up. She looked right up into the eye of the tornado.
Mm.
She's holding onto this
Wow.
washing machine. She says, she said she felt the spirit of her grandmother like a dome over her,
Mm.
and the washing machine went up, and it was just her and the puppies sitting down there in the basement. And
Mm.
so, that's kind of been with me my whole life, been with my family. I, I, I don't want that to be the dominant narrative.
Right.
I want to be able, I'm very, how do I put this? I like sitting and watching a thunderstorm. I think it didn't get me yet. So,
Right.
Mhm.
uh, so we all have things, and unburdening is asking people to think around the idea of what it takes for them to take some steps working through that. I talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. There's a way that we can kind of think about what you saw, what you experienced, and how that affects our mental health. The statistics, if you look at the original, it's called the ACE study, where they sent out a survey to people asking them about trauma. I mean, it was like off the charts. So, and then the last tenet is purpose.
Hmm.
And purpose is a very short chapter reminding you that you have a sense of purpose, encouraging you not to fall down the path that we hear everybody like, oh, kid, find your passion. Like, don't ask teens and 20-year-olds what their passions are, right? People shouldn't spend their life in porn. It's like, come on. Right? As a teenage boy, it's like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not it.
passions burn hot. What we're
Yeah.
looking for, what we're hoping for is a something that you find is a process that you find purposeful, that you find kind of your hands naturally do, that lights you up, that you keep thinking about, that you come back to, that connects you with other people. So
Mm.
those are the 9 tenets of mental fitness.
Wow. Pretty amazing
Right.
collection of tips and things. And, I'm assuming like putting these into practice as you're working with people, it's like, somebody's gonna be like, where do I start? And is there a place to start? Is it what's calling you? How do you start to, as you're working with people, put some of these into action as you talked about?
Well, everybody who's been listening along with this long knows, because something in these 9 tenets sticks out to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do believe that there's a sequence, the intentional sequence that manifested in me as I wrote these out, and we actually, all of a sudden it was like so clear. Self-awareness goes first, and so I like starting with the self-awareness because, again, share with yourself, share with us, but mostly with yourself. Like, where are you right now? What is the top thing? When I see patients, a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't have a plan. I make sure at the end of the day, right then I say, okay, I guarantee you at the end of this, we're going to have a plan. It might just be for the next day or for the next week. But I usually, when I see people, it's like, okay, this is what we see going on. It's going to be the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I like starting with the self-awareness. But again, if something stuck out to you, right? You haven't eaten lentils in a while, or I said pesto and your mom had an amazing pesto recipe you haven't made for a while. Uh, I really want you to pay attention to that. The thing that lights you up, captivates you, is the way into your mental fitness, and also I like to remind people you're already doing so much. Part of this is an accounting to acknowledge all of the things you are doing to move your body, that you are doing to get the nutrient dense food and to sleep well and to connect with people, and to honor that. It's
Yeah.
huge for your mental health and it's huge for your community.
Mm.
Awesome. Awesome. So we had a lot that we just went through. And for our listeners, we want to make sure, is there anything else that you want to leave them with that we might have not covered?
I want to ask everybody to follow me on Instagram. I'm Drew Ramsey, MD, and I hope mostly that most important thing for me, everybody listening, I'd love you to check out the book, review the book, check out my website, Drew Ramsey, MD, all that stuff, of course. But really, seriously, the most important thing for me from this conversation is that you do something for your mental fitness. I, I, I insist on it. It's like the price of admission. I really don't want to be in your life, in your ear, you thinking about hearing this conversation unless it leads to something for you very
Right.
actionable and tangible. So that's what I'd like to leave everybody with. David and Jamie, you too.
Mhm.
I hope you do it. I hope you
Yeah.
post it and tag me if you have to, but that's fine. It can just be you, and it's great to be back with you. I really appreciate you supporting me, supporting mental health, all that you do to educate and talk about mental health and help folks like me get our message out there. It's just awesome to have a little connection with you and see you all again, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate you. And I don't know, do you want to? David has his one last surprise question for
Always.
you. He wants to
Yeah.
make sure to get to. So,
Yeah, you kind of gave us a little mic drop moment when you kind of put it on us as far as our self-awareness practice. What's your self-awareness practice?
Well, I think I have 2 that drive me. One is a psychotherapist. I'm always, every day, kind of every session, thinking about how I'm reacting, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, how focused I am, what the various aspects of my mind are informing me in that moment. And so that to me is, I don't know, maybe 40,000 hours in. to me have been my professional kind of practice and pleasure and kind of skill to try and be more and more self-aware.
Hmm.
Recently, I found journaling, especially as the book was coming out. I was dealing with just a lot of big feelings of vulnerability, putting stuff out there. I just found having this little private spot for me. I almost felt like I got addicted to it. I'd like go
Hmm.
up in the middle of the night and I'd write 2 pages and I'd be like, I'm gonna have a third page. And it was great. And so, those are big. And then I find music is really big for when I
Mm.
really like strumming an instrument or, singing in the car with my kids. Those things just, I don't know, help me just kind of settle down and feel a little bit more self-aware and more gracious, a little more gratitude. So thanks so much for that question.
Thank you for your time. It's been amazing to see you again. We appreciate you, and we will be sure to tag you in all the things going forward.
All of them.
Well,
We'll be in
thank you so
touch.
much. Have a great day. And everybody, thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate you both. I'll see y'all soon.
I appreciate you.